May 19, 1944, 80 years ago. In Italy, Allied forces have advanced within 150 kilometers of Rome. At a small town called Aquino, the 11th Canadian Armoured Regiment, Ontario Regiment, joins the British 36th Infantry and 26th Armoured Brigades to launch an attack on the formidable defences of the Adolf Hitler Line, which stretch across the town and its nearby airport. In their way stands the German 90th Panzergrenadier Division, a hardened and tenacious division that had fought for years in North Africa and was involved in the especially bloody Battle of Ortona only months earlier. Little do the Ontarios realize it will turn out to be one of their most difficult days of combat in the war, and a defining moment in their history. To scope out enemy defences, the British Army's 2nd Battalion, London Irish Rifles, and 5th Battalion, the Buffs, Royal East Kent Regiment, send out reconnaissance parties to survey Aquino and the surrounding area. Aerial reconnaissance had found camouflaged anti-tank positions on the airfield, but the town itself also had to be checked for German positions. The reconnaissance parties do not find anything in the town itself though, so they mount back up and return to headquarters. What the reconnaissance parties did not end up finding is the battle-hardened German 90th Panzergrenadier Division lying in wait nearby. Although prepared in a hurry, the defenses of the Hitler Line were still impressive. Built off a western section of the recently breached Gustav Line, the Hitler Line was about 55 kilometers long, with defenses up to 800 meters deep. Of greatest concern to the Ontarios were deadly camouflaged Panther turret positions, which were Panther tank turrets encased in concrete bunkers buried in the ground. Armed with a 75mm cannon, Panther terms were highly lethal to the Ontario's Sherman tanks, while themselves being difficult to spot and hit with return fire. 2 or 3 other 75mm or 50mm towed anti-tank guns also were installed around each Panther term. As if they were not enough, the line also was covered with plenty of other artillery, anti-tank, and machine gun pillbox positions, along with anti-tank ditches, barbed wire, and minefields. Bold and resolute as ever, the 90th Panzergrenadier Division is not about to give up their positions on a defensive line bearing their Führer's name. As we see the Germans entering the field and setting up their positions, closest to you, you see a Panzer III tank. Been in service since about 1937 by that point, but still a very formidable weapon, 50mm cannon. Good enough to take out a Sherman, still highly lethal. Over on the far side of the field, that is a Hanomag SD KFZ 251 half-track, the ride of the Panzer Grenadiers, who were what we now call mechanized infantry. They could each carry a section of about 10 soldiers in the back, who would then often dismount and set up their own defenses and fight on foot, while the vehicle itself could offer machine gun fire. Closest to the fence, you also notice a PaK-36 anti-tank gun. Also had been in service for a long time by that point, and struggling to take out some newer Allied vehicles, but still not a threat to take lightly. And finally, just coming in the arena, a Stug 3 assault gun, highly lethal to Sherman tanks. The airfield and its approaches are thick with fog, and at first, there is no sight of the enemy. Imagine being this close to the enemy and still not being able to see each other. You can imagine the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. Still advancing cautiously, trying to make contact with the enemy on their terms. As the fog begins to clear, B Squadron and the Buffs are pinned down in a storm of anti-tank cannon and machine gun fire in a cemetery. With the Panther Grenadiers having just as much cover as they do, the Ontarios and the Buffs are struggling for every inch of ground. Things are going no better for A Squadron at the north end of the airfield. Only 2 hours into the attack, Panther terms and Panther destroyers have already taken out 3 Shermans in quick succession. The rest of the squadron is pinned down in a depression as it tries to avoid enemy fire. They try to move forward to take aim at the German defenses, but cannot get a clear shot without risking getting hit. As the situation worsened by the hour, many Ontarios showed incredible courage as they put their lives on the line to come to their comrades' aid. When the regiment's smoke cover grew thin, Sergeant Ken Braithwaite and Trooper Kelly Turcott hurried back to base to fetch an M3 Stuart and load it with smoke canisters. Under intense enemy fire, they raced back to the battle, deploying the canisters in strategic locations to obscure the enemy's view.
There you see from the Stuart on the far side of the arena, Sergeant Braithwaite and Trooper Turcott restoring the smoke cover that these Shermans so sorely needed after the fog had cleared so suddenly and they're caught out in the open. To do that all under fire is nothing short of a heroic effort on their part. If you've been with us for a while, an interesting connection. We once had a veteran visit by Skipper Ralph Kearney, who has since sadly passed on. He and Sergeant Ken Braithwaite were brothers-in-law.
Unwilling to sit idly as the mayhem unfolded before him, the regimental chaplain's driver, Trooper Cecil Westover, raced back and forth from the combat zone to evacuate wounded comrades in his jeep. He continued this task for 3 straight days, saving about 180 soldiers. The situation becomes especially confused when the Buff's commanding officer and signal section are all killed when their carrier takes a direct hit from German artillery. B Squadron lost all contact with the infantry and struggled to fire on the enemy without a serious risk of friendly fire. After spending all day exposed and under heavy fire on the airfield, it was clear that the attack from the British 26th Armoured Brigade was not going to happen. Much to their shock, the Ontarios have lost 13 tanks to enemy fire. Trooper John Phillips had been killed, and several officers also were badly wounded. A Squadron's own commanding officer, Major Harry Millen, had been shot in the head by a sniper and struck by shrapnel, although he luckily survived his injuries. Seeing the urgent need to withdraw, Captain Arthur Bud Hawkins, call sign Peter Roger Charlie 1, takes command and calls on the 392nd Battery, 98th Field Regiment, Royal Artillery, call sign George Peter Able 22, for artillery support to cover their withdrawal.
Able 22, this is Peter Roger Charlie 1. Where's that artillery? Over. Peter Roger Charlie 1, this is George Peter Able 22. Here comes the range. Button up, get ready to move. Standing by for service. Out. Peter Able 2-2. This is Peter Roger Charlie 1. We're clear. That was quite a show. Thanks for the assist, over. Always happy to oblige. Peter Roger Charlie 1, out.
And that, folks, is the Battle of Aquino.